we go on to the next session on Achievables. And on the expert panel, we have with us Dr. Ajay Sharma, who has joined in. Very warm welcome to you, Dr. Ajay. Dr. Sanjay Chaudhary, a very warm welcome. And we have Debashish, who has decided he is going to be with us. We really need his inputs. And Dr. Girish Rao and Dr. Arul Muri Varman will be joining us soon. I think Dr. Girish Rao, very warm welcome. Yeah, so we shall start a little change of order. Dr. Ardia, thank you very much for staying. If you are here for some more time, we'll be even more happy. And please don't sit in the third row. You're too important for us. Please sit in the first row.
Sir, in ARC program, it's only one-way entry, sir.
Only one-way entry. We don't let you go out. We want to retain the audience. So we go on to our Dr. Mahipal Sachdev, who is the chairman and the medical director of the Center for Sight Group of Hospitals, our very popular past president, and he's going to talk on financial targets the way I do it. Sadly, he has 10 minutes. He would talk for 2 hours too, but he has to talk it all in 10 minutes.
Yeah, because it's your husband who said come at 10:15. Last talk there. Anyway, I think this is the old age wine after the new age daughter gave her gyan. So I am supposed to be talking about financial targets, and again, picking up from where Ritika left, you need to, like in operations, you have to also financially develop a clear financial strategy, and that has to align with your business goals. One thing that we never do, actually, I said this yesterday also, like when you're writing a paper, a manuscript, the easiest thing is to write the material and method and the results. But when it comes next is discussion, but the most difficult thing is the abstract, and still more difficult is to put a one-liner right on top, which is the title of the thing. So similarly, when you are having a business, we're talking in leadership, so I don't mind using the word business, because I don't know, somehow healthcare and business is thought to be disaligned, but I think for anything to grow, it has to be taken as a business venture. So your business goals right from the beginning, from the day one, like whether you're starting a practice or you are already established, they need to be established, and you need to have a 5-year plan at least as to what you want to achieve in the next 5 years. And definitely what you want to achieve in the next year, that is, we do it according to the financial, and then break it down into quarters, and break it down into months, and then break it down into weeks, and then break it down into every day. So you have to have a business goal which has to be defined, and then you have to have a clear financial strategy on that. And the revenue growth has to at times be subservient to the profitability, because often we only look at the revenue growth, that what is our revenue, but what is your, at the end of the day, all companies are valued on profit after tax. So that is, at the end of the day, you have to look at the profitability, and then there is an important metrics which is called as ROCE, that is on the capital invested, that what is your return. So you may buy a machine of 5 crores, but your return is zilch. So those are the things that you have to clearly define: revenue, profit, and return on capital. So this is what you have to do when you are doing. And thereon, whenever you start anything on financial planning, you have to look at your SWOT analysis, and you must do this, that what are your strengths, on what you can play, what you can leverage, what are the opportunities in that particular area, what are your weaknesses, how you can get over with those weaknesses. And if somebody is very strong, like I will not go in Calcutta and compete with Disha on pricing and things like that, because I know that's my weakness. I will not be able to work in those many numbers. And what are the threats that you have? So when you do every year, at the beginning, there has to be a budget meeting, and there has to be a financial planning, and there has to be a control and oversight. That means that whatever you have set as a budget, how do you control it, and what is the oversight on that particular thing? The performance needs to be evaluated. We, for example, have a BI report or a business intelligence report that comes to us every day. And that is across the centers, as also each center has to give its report as to what it is. And then you have to compare it pro rata with the last year's performance, and what was your budget as the percentage of the budget that is achieved. So that is what you have to do. And then evaluate as to what is the performance and take corrective actions. So that is very important as to what you need to do. And if you are failing in a particular area, or if you are not, like the question that was asked was that what percentage of growth are you looking at, that you have to set beforehand as to what should be the growth per percentage that should be there. And you should identify how you reach that target. It will be ultimately be a subset of A, B, C, D, E. That means that you will cataract, refractive, retina, plasty, then pharmacy, opticals, all those things, OPD, etc., investigation, all those will go into a pool. So therefore, you need to have identify the basic issues, and you need to identify as to what all are going to feed into that particular thing. Sorry. You have to analyze key financial metrics and monitor and analyze daily, weekly, monthly. This I have already told. Daily sales report is something that we get. We call it as a DSR. So DSR comes from every center, and that gives you the sales summary. That means what is the total revenue that you have got, what is the sales comparison, as I told you, with the last year, what are the goals and targets, so what is the percentage achieved as per your goals and targets, and analysis and insight as to whether it is going up or down. For example, if we are in a place where Eid is very this thing, Muradabad center, for example. So if last month Muradabad was not doing well, or if there was another place where there's a lot of Muslim population and it doesn't do well, you don't take the stick and beat them that okay, it is there, but because there are factors, a Diwali coming in, you know it is not going to do well and things like that. So that is what is important. And you have to divide it subspecialty wise. Don't let a cataract cover a downfall in refractive, or a refractive cover the downfall in retina or into plasty, etc. And please track these other things: OPD, IPD, pharma, and opticals. Now, the key metrics involves patient satisfaction, uh, the revenue per patient, Ritika has talked about, and cost per procedure. So the cost of goods is something very, very important, that the cost of goods has to be looked at. And that is what I feel is, see, for example, if you have an EBITDA percentage of 20%, for every 1 rupee that you save, that is equivalent to 5 rupees of revenue. So if you have to do that, so that is something very important, that money saving is often not looked at, and you should negotiate hard, because the margins I know are very huge with the suppliers. The same lens they can sell to somebody at 5,000, 6,000, and you can actually get it at 3,000 rupees. So you have to negotiate very hard. And like often I compare notes with Ronnie and Shreyas and ourselves, and we see that there is a price differential, and we need to collectively maybe bargain and get good prices. But money saved is money earned. That is something very important. Also, in financial planning, you have to look at the revenue as expanding your services or offering new products. There is always a demand from some other center ke sir hame ye laga dijiye, hum ye kar denge. So the point is, there's a center which says ke okay, you get me a femto cataract, we will do wonders. So you have to catch them by okay, fine, what is the thing that you are going to do? It's a toy. I bought 8 femto cataracts, but ultimately I had to shift a lot of them to NCR, because there we are doing 600 plus femtos in a month, because we have got the inflection point in Delhi NCR. But in other places where we had great surgeons, we were not able to convert it. So you have to look at what are the new products and what can be offered, and you have to consider marketing campaigns, partnership, etc., which is important. So when you are looking at the financial, you have to look at the revenue streams. And this is what I've said, that you have to consider at adding new services, increasing prices. We tend to increase our prices by 5 to 6% every year. You have to do that. It should be a given that not even covers the cost of inflation as things stand today, and we are very hesitant in increasing the prices. But that has, and reducing cost to boost revenue and profit margin should be an ongoing exercise. Often we do not look at reducing the cost, and what we have to do is that whatever you are offering with new technology coming in the service industry, you have to expand these services, whether geographically or adding new novelty products which is there. This is a different talk altogether, but I was just talking to what Hemant Murthy in Bangalore, and he said our work has doubled after we tied up with Eye Foundation. So the point is that collaborations are win-win, and that is going to be the future of any healthcare industry as things are. So that's something we have to talk about. Then you have to also look at cash flow. Please do a cash flow management, that you have to write what is money coming in, what is the loan you have taken, what is the interest to be paid, what is the principal amount to be paid, and you have to make a chartered accountant do a cash flow which has to be there. And finally, I would say that you need to invest in technology. Without technology, you will not be able to be the leaders in the market. And because technology is very high tech and it is delivering, therefore you have to keep on investing, and you need to seek external advice. We are not the masters of everything. You need to seek advice for financial experts, HR experts, for people who are marketing, branding, etc., etc. IT. You have to have. You don't think that you can do anything. Maybe I could do everything when I started practice in 1996, but the way the world has evolved today, you have to have expert advice, and they are costly. So that again, for a single practitioner, may not be something that is possible. So friends, to sum up, I would just say that financial planning is very, very important. We do not, in the midst of our clinical work, we do not look at financial planning. That has to be given time, and you have to look at that. And you have to remember that hitting financial target is nothing wrong. It is something which is imperative. Like when your children go, you tell them you have to score, whether you tell them or not, but they're competing and you need to have a score that they get. So similarly, you have to have a target which is there. Remember that hitting financial target is a continuous process. You need to keep on updating, maybe change your targets, up them or down them, depending upon realities, require constant monitoring, evaluation and adjustments, and it may take time to see the results, but by focusing on these strategies, you can increase your chances of success. And financial targeting is something which is important, and you need to actually hit bang on. Big companies declare that this is going to be our revenue and this is going to be our EBITDA, and if they underperform, they are bashed up in the stock exchange. So you have to have targets, and you need to ensure that those targets are realistic and they are met. So that is nothing wrong, and that is what needs to do. And that's where I will wish to say thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank
Dr.
you,
Chitra. Thank you.
Dr. Maipal. Just one question to be answered as a single line. When do you think you have ideal way of break even for a new center you've started? Do you set a time frame or?
So basically, the time frame has changed over time. It used to be 24 to 30 months. Now it is down to 18 months. And in Delhi NCR, where we have a large brand value, it is down to 6 months. Okay. So therefore, it is going to be different in different geographies. What you are doing, whether it's a hub or a spoke or a super center, there are centers in 3 months which have broken even, but that's
location of the place.
Location of the place, the services, the size, the scope, the rental. Rental is one big thing. Yeah, Devashish.
Yes. When would you think that this is not going to work?
Yeah.
Everything is going to work. I think I have made mistakes of shutting down few centers because we wanted to do an IPO and we wanted to stop our bleeders. But I'm sure that had I stuck on there, like Hyderabad bled me for 26 crores. 26 crores is not, including the investment that I have. But today we are making, because it was main pegs were oncology and retina. And they are never the revenue spinners. Revenue spinners has to be cataract and refractive. Since the focus has changed now, this thing is staying. We are making profits every month. And so I think if you stay there long enough, all centers, because this is word of mouth works, all will break even. But maybe if it's not working in about 3 years' time, you could think of maybe shutting it down.
So important message to our young audience that you don't think about this break even and all that. You keep working hard, keep showing results, keep taking them forward. In any corner of the world, you will win. The winning has to be in your mind.
Ma'am, just one question, sir. Regarding the percentage growth, again, from a beginner versus an established practice, what would be the percentage growth? See,
if you want to be a unicorn, you need to grow 200% a year. But I think it depends again on your startup. If your base is low, if I am doing 20 lakhs of revenue per month and I want to go to 40 lakhs, that's not a problem. But if I am doing 7 crores of revenue a month, going to 20% would be 1 crore 40 lakhs. So basically percentages at times are fallacious. But for the first 3 years, you should at least grow at 50% year on year.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
For a new startup.
Thank you very much for sparing your time and being with us. I hope all the young leaders are attending everything. Some of the information, if not used today, will come of use tomorrow. So please be glued. and it was with great difficulty I got all these speakers and this expert panel here. So we go on to our next speaker, Dr. Shreyash Ramurthy, who's a cornea, cataract, and refractive surgeon and a consultant at the Eye Foundation group of hospitals. And it's not a mother who is talking, but he's done brilliantly well. And I see many Shreyashes here in this group. So all of you have to do well and come back and tell me that you are really somewhere else than what you were before the LDP program. So he is going to talk on performance excellence, my definition, and benchmarks.
So, good morning, everyone. After the two very high-flying talks, which Ritika and Dr. Maipal gave about, so many points which all of us can learn, I will bring you all back down to earth on the grind which we can do on a day-to-day basis to see where we can have small incremental performances. Monitoring performance is important irrespective of the size of our practice, whether we are an individual practitioner, group practice, single center practice, multi-center practice. Looking at these parameters on a day-to-day basis is important. A lot of you may be already looking into some of them. I'm just going to be giving a very open talk, looking and showing, sharing parameters which we are seeing on a day-to-day basis, some which are working well, some which are not working very well. Now, for monitoring any performance, it just starts with having good data. So it's extremely important that we have efficient electronic medical records, hospital management software, ERP softwares, which help us to acquire good data. Once you have good data, you can then start benchmarking yourself year on year, month on month, depending on how you want to look at targets. And comparison with past performance is extremely important for you to even benchmark on what you're going to aim for in the subsequent year. So I will divide monitoring performance into OPD, IPD. There might be some overlap from the previous talks as well. And then look at some human resource related points as well on how we monitor performance in each center. Now, this is just a random example of one particular center. Now, for each place, looking at the walk-ins, the patients, and dividing them into what we call as new OPD, who are visiting you for the first time, returning customers, which is old OPD, and then review patients, who you have given 2-week, 4-week appointments. Very often in many places, we just look at the entire OPD of the day or entire OPD of the month and feel that we are doing quite well. Because as the center starts becoming older, you start getting more reviews and older patients. But it is really the new OPD and new walk-ins which needs to keep growing year on year. And trying to achieve that is what is going to actually help have us give us a sustained growth. And anywhere, even for what was already being mentioned, for a relatively new practice, your new OPD would grow much faster. But for an established practice or an older practice, you need to come up with newer ideas and newer parameters to ensure your new OPD keeps growing for your performance to keep enhancing each year. So for us to find out how the new OPD can keep growing, acquiring data on where your patients are coming from, what source is the patient, are they from your online digital marketing campaigns, are they from different camps that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, are they from patients who are coming in from your referral doctors or other opticals who are referring patients to you. All these are extremely important. However, in any practice, word of mouth would be number one. 80 to 90% of your growth and your practice would be from word of mouth. So ensuring your patients are satisfied is extremely important, which we'll go through as performance indicators in subsequent slides as well. But capturing this becomes very, very important at the very entry point itself. And at the entry point, because you're looking at different leads, how the patient has come in. Let's say if you're doing, this is just an example, snapshot of a Google campaign of a single center, where these calls are coming to the call center. From that, how many patients are actually walked in, how many patients have turned out, and based on which can we improve, what else can we do? And even looking at the keywords that you're setting also has to be changed. Because your performance, they might be saying somebody who's running your digital campaign will say, I brought you 800 calls this month. But were those 800 calls relevant calls? Were they unrelated calls? Were they actually just patients asking for other hospitals who just by chance happened to call you by mistake? All these things continue to happen, and monitoring these parameters help us to tweak our individual campaigns. Once now the patient has entered the hospital, you've captured the initial data. The next most important factor is the OPD waiting time. And really looking at this breakup very closely is a very important performance indicator, because a new patient who comes in, who has already been to possibly 2 or 3 other practices, this is a single important differentiator. Because good doctors, good consultation, good OPD consultation might be available everywhere, but it is this overall service in terms of patient interaction and OPD waiting time which is going to make a difference. So one of the parameters we check is the initial registration to the first assessment when the optometrist or anybody who's going to see the patient first. Because once the patient is registered, that initial waiting time is something which irritates a patient. Once they are into the flow, they are undergoing different investigations, they are seeing one consultant being crossed to another consultant, they get caught up in all those things that they are not as concerned about the overall time that they've spent. But once they've done the initial registration or billing, this is a very important parameter. And this is a parameter which we track with our optometrists as well, the speed at which they are seeing the patient, because they are the ones who are going to first assess what is the ratio of patients who are above 30 minutes, who have been initially assessed, above 60 minutes. All of these can be captured from your EMR with just a click of a button. You just need to tweak the inputs accordingly. Again, overall waiting time is very, very important. Now, very often we felt that the patients who waited longest were the patients who were most dissatisfied. But that is not the case. A patient who's coming for just a regular checkup, wanting a glass and visiting your opticals and leaving, wants to do it quickly. If that patient waits for 2 hours, he's much more unhappy than a patient who has undergone an entire workup, seen your cataract, seen your retina, seen your glaucoma consultant, and then leaves after 4 hours. That is a more satisfied patient. So it is not just the overall time, but the breakup of the patients, of the type of patients who are waiting longer, which is also a parameter which we track very, very closely. This is again just the optimum reports of each of the optometrists in any one center, which we look at. We look at the peak hours, and during the peak hours, what is the average number of patients that they've seen per hour. And you can benchmark what is the number of patients that they should be seeing and try to encourage them to improve month on month. And the same thing goes for doctors as well. This can be done. A lot of parameters which are shown is very difficult to monitor unless your review patients and old patients are not given the appropriate appointments. Very often you will know that there is a particular peak time in your OPD traffic. During that OPD traffic, if we can avoid our regular reviews and regular patients, this will help us in distributing our patients. So we make it a point that for patients who are coming for a short review, 1 week, 2 week review, post cataract surgery review, they are all given appointments in the afternoon slot between 2 to 4, which is our lowest regular walk-in OPD time, the post lunch session. So when we are able to distribute that, this reduces the peak traffic of patients at any particular time and helps manage the entire setup better. Important also is the accuracy of data entry, because nowadays everything is being communicated over a phone, either an SMS or a WhatsApp. So ensuring that you have the data input and monitoring whether the data has been acquired correctly is very, very important in every practice. Once your patient has now come, has undergone the treatment and or is undergoing the treatment, how do you know that the majority of your regular OPD staff is performing to the optimal parameters? I think one surrogate parameter that we use is in the amount of feedbacks and reviews that they are collecting on a daily basis. Are these reviews going to directly increase the number of patients who are coming to your hospital? Maybe. Very small impact, because it is a soft marketing tool. If you are having a good number of Google reviews, good rating, maybe some more patients will walk in. But for me, that is not the ultimate goal. For me, the more important goal is, if a patient, if a staff has to collect a Google review from a patient before they leave, they would probably have to interact with 20 patients to collect 2 reviews, because it's not easy to collect a review from a patient. but it is interacting with those 20 patients, inquiring whether they had a satisfactory experience in your hospital, inquiring whether what could be improved. These are things which we want each of our staff members, our OPD members, our coordinators, floor managers to be doing with the patients. And this is an indirect measure, because otherwise you cannot track them in real numbers as to how they are performing, and this gives a surrogate measure in the number of feedbacks and reviews that they have taken. Again, your feedbacks and reviews from your patients can give you inputs on areas which you are probably not monitoring, areas which you think are not so important, right from your car parking areas to your opticals to your canteen facilities. Each and everything our patients are noticing, possibly in areas which we are not noticing, and addressing these complaints and monitoring them will help improve performance. We also look at the number of service complaints that we receive in a month. The inpatient ward, we have a patient satisfaction score, a satisfaction index, or the NPS score, which Ritika was also referring to earlier. These are very important parameters. I'll quickly move on to monitoring data. Now, again, in inpatient, you are looking at the number of counseling, the number of patients who have been worked up, the surgery done, and this is being monitored month on month, because a patient who has been seen the previous month will undergo a workup possibly in this month and a surgery in the next month. Tracking these patients, seeing how you are performing is very, very important. In our product mix was already addressed earlier, and this is just a split up of different IOLs, how much we're using, what is the percentage of conversion to torics multifocals, how is each center doing, and benchmarking them on a monthly basis is also a very important parameter for monitoring. For paucity of time, I'll not go into the individual specifics, but there is a different benchmark for each subspecialty. Like for cataract or your retina services, you should ideally have a higher conversion than your refractive, because in refractive it is a completely elective procedure and you really cannot follow up your patients as frequently without being seen as a disturbance. So ideally we don't make any follow-up calls for our refractive surgery patients, but do maximum follow-up calls for our retina patients, because educating them about the importance of the surgery itself or the intervention itself in preventing visual loss is important, and they're usually more accepting of follow-up calls in this subset. Lab is again a very important area where patients who are having systemic illness, very often for a simple cataract surgery, a patient might think you need to get a cardiac fitness or you need to visit a diabetologist who they've been postponing for years together, and this eventually ends up losing the patient altogether, because when they go to a cardiologist, the workup and the investigations cost more than what we are charging for a cataract surgery. So it becomes a big financial strain on the patient. So monitoring these and seeing what is necessary for that particular surgery and advising appropriately is very important. Quickly moving on to the final part, which is the HR parameters. We look at the maintenance monitoring, any machine which has been down, what is the average downtime before which that has been rectified with any instrument. How is your staff coming in? What is the late attendance of each of these staff? Budgeting for your staff, manpower details, how many consultants, where do you have shortages, and addressing this and monitoring it on a monthly basis is also important. Your attrition rate and your employee satisfaction indices are very, very important. OT sterilization, again, we have different parameters which we look into to ensure that your sterilization is maintained. I just included this slide to say that there are different ways of motivating your team. I find it extremely difficult to show any individual doctor their particular number or particular performance. And I think sometimes it's counterproductive as well, as our doctors are not very receptive to it at all times. But I feel a team target is something which motivates almost every one of them. Telling them that your team has achieved this, can we try to do better? And when we say achievement, it does not necessarily have to only be revenue. It can be surgical numbers, it can be OPD numbers. Again, surgical numbers are in the hands of your staff, your doctors, your counselors, your team. And this is something which we prefer to set a benchmark on rather than overvalue. And I find that it really motivates them, it pushes them, and they try to reach that score. Even our incentives, the bonuses that we give is on reaching these individual surgical target numbers. And again, you can ensure that they are trying to do the very best in terms of talking to the patient, spending the chair time with the patient, while maintaining ethical standards without pushing them for a package or a surgery or an investigation which they may not require. So to maintain the balance, I feel a number of in terms of surgeries or these numbers is easier to monitor, easier to track, something which is palatable for all the doctors who are in our services. So thank you so much for your kind attention.
Wonderful talk, Shreyas.
Thank you, Dr. Shreyas. Just one quick question. You were telling the complaints. Do you take both Google reviews as well as the physical complaints both together? Because it might be a cumbersome for the patients. Because sometimes we force them not to put the negative comments on the Google review, and if they put, then we call them back and telling that please remove that, and all those these things we see.
No, so I think collecting a Google review is possibly the 10th communication in the way our staff. So right from greeting them when they come in to talking to them, helping them out at various time
So you
points.
take a physical.
And then finally, when they are leaving, they talk to them, analyze or ask them if they are satisfied
So you give
overall
them
and
the
happy.
sheet. You give them
No,
the sheet.
if they are happy, they ask them for a Google review. We have QR codes and different things which are on display, or it's in the hand of every floor manager. But apart from that, there is an automated SMS and WhatsApp link which goes to every patient as soon as they register for giving feedbacks. So whenever a patient is a little unhappy or has some waiting time, rather than pushing them for getting a Google review and having a negative review posted on your page, request them to open that link and give a feedback immediately. We also have physical sheets, but we find that patients somehow in the south, maybe I don't know if it's there in the north as well, patients are more hesitant to write and give that I didn't like this doctor, I didn't like this thing. But when they have a secluded feedback page and not in a fresh sheet in front of our staff, they don't mind going back and writing and sending it back. And all those complaints which I gave are from our service feedbacks or the WhatsApp links and SMS links which go out to them. But our staff encourage them to write it down and give us the feedbacks, promising them that we'll address each of these complaints and ensure they won't have the similar experience next time.
One last question. In the non-revenue earning departments, some departments are non-revenue earning. How do you do the performance appraisal of those cases? Do you follow any rubrics or anything for that?
No, so that's exactly why I said numbers, because let's say a very important specialty like pediatric ophthalmology or oculoplasty may not necessarily be very revenue spinning, but that's a very, very important facet of the hospital, because other patients may come in knowing that this has the wide variety of services. So in those areas, we do look at only the numbers, number growth, and not really at the revenue growth. And appraisal is irrespective. I mean, appraisal is on the performance of the hospital and not on the individual. Yes, there might be certain segments who might be growing a little faster and they may be getting a little better, a little higher income.
Any rubrics you people follow?
No, so generally not a set parameter. It would vary from center to center, but it is usually on the center's performance. Our appraisal is usually somewhere between 15 to 18% as an average.
Srinivas,
Yes, sir.
on this, our experience has been that every individual service, like Center for Sight was saying, has to be sustainable, like pediatric or oculoplasty. It may not be as profit spinning as maybe cataract or refractives, but it has to be sustainable. I'll give you a small story. In our hospital, at one point of time, they had to open shoes, so to enter the hospital. So now one guy came and there was a word around. We bought our first OCT 2004. So 20 lakh equipment has come. So this guy, and we were charging that nominal price. So it was actually subsidized out of the profit of the cataract patient. But a cataract patient was waiting, and because he had a OCT bill, the security said, "Come, please sit here," because he thought he was more important. So, in the organizational culture, sometimes you can get things very wrong. So it is better to balance things in the right perspective, that everything should be sustainable.
Correct.
But some would be more profitable. Yes.
True. Very true. Thank you.
sir.
Now,
Yeah.
let me introduce madam, or you want to? Yeah. Okay. So we need now yeah. So it's a audience choice and the expert panel choice that you need not be introduced because everybody knows you. So she'll be speaking on the women in leadership and why not. And to be very frank with you, a few years before in one of the AIOS conferences, she spoke on why women should lead. And although they have a difficulties of having children and they take off from the practice, But one statement she always said, that having children is like an investment for the long term. It's not the short term profit you get, but the long term profit. And then she says that the children are now more attached to me rather than her Ramurthy sir. So so that actually caused the goosebumps in majority of them. So definitely I think she's a very motivational speaker when it comes to the women leadership, and we have none other than Dr. Chitra Ramurthy to speak on that.
I'm sorry, I'm breaking the queue. The leadership segment comes at 12, but I have to go for the court martial. So since Sanjay Chaudhary has gone, he'll come back later. I thought I'll take that slot. So 15 minutes, bear with me. It is a motivational talk for all the women leaders, and the men can look on with amusement. So there are more men here incidentally in the audience. So the topic is women in leadership, why not? So basically, very simplistically and altruistically speaking, what is leadership? Before I go on to women in leadership. Leadership is not about titles and positions or flowcharts. It's about just one life influencing the other life. Is it a virtue? Is it an emotion? Is it a passion? Or is it a very difficult terrain? Or is it a terrain that all of us have to walk just because some of those leaders walk? After all, it could be tough, it could be frustrating, it could be steeped in politics. So each of us have to seek these horizons, but that's when the story of leadership starts. This was one tiny leader when in our younger days, we used to play outside more than the youngsters play inside. So we used to fly kites. And there was one young guy who used to have very sharp threads and used to run ahead of us and used to bring down huge number of kites. I wish his mother understood the leadership quality which was there in him. And had he been brought forward, probably today he would have been a big leader. There's another story of a household which has a very good cook and a mistress of the house. There's quite a big household, right from the grandfather to the grandchildren. And this cook is able to reach out to the food palate taste of every of those individuals and cooks accordingly. And the mistress of the house, somehow right from the grandfather to the father to the son, somehow will identify this mistress in the corner of the house and they will share their problems. Both of them smiling and both of them very simplistic. But I think there was leadership in them too. In fact, if you see one ant leading a trio of ants to build a ant hill, even that I would say is leadership. In other words, I think leadership is something which is seen in every nook and cranny. You have to just stand aside and watch. But of course, if this leadership is combined with modesty, combined with humility and transparency, and if this leadership has a passion to keep the whole team together, has that extra brilliance, that extra genius, which is what anyway that makes that person is a leader, I would call that true leadership. Of course, it's just telling you stories about the recent past, the COVID times. There were young guys who went on to help the senior citizens about getting them bank accounts and food and all that. There were some youngsters in south of India which came in the papers who were spending money from the limited resources to get food for the people in the shelters. Now, I call that as leadership. Leadership is not about running rallies or collecting or making false promises or standing on podiums and giving talks. But it's the leadership, is that fire in that belly, which is a true leadership quality. And every single person of us gets that chance for that leadership. It is just that you have to grasp that moment of leadership, understand it somehow came to you and just take it up. And if you take it forward, it is a satisfying moment. Coming back to my topic, okay, women in leadership. What are the issues which come and hit in the forefront? In fact, the men have been very generous, and I am one of those women who's talking on the podium here among so many men. So I'm sure all your men are also been encouraging you so that you're here today. But there has been a tough evolution, which is why we need to segregate this woman and talk about her. There has been a gender bias, and it appeared as if the women were not meant for top priority positions because it was as if she did face the brunt of familial challenges. And even those women who came to work were in middle managerial posts because they knew that this woman is going to be plagued with challenges, and it was an untold truth. There's going to be an inconsistency in her work. And the man in question, well, he would play the field. He was unfettered, he was unhindered, and of course, he was chauvinistic and dominant. So he went on. But history did not allow that. There was a rise in the world aggression, and with sheer work and determination, some movement came forward. Then came a society when you realize that if you combine men and women in work, there's a diversity of thoughts, different perspectives, a lot of collective decisions, and there are varied interests. A woman thinks differently, a man thinks differently, but they are all come together. There is a context which gets created, and then they realize that it is a strong new platform. And then there were some mentors and leaders who evolved, and they took on different kinds of leadership. Some of them would talk of their success stories, some of them would give their free advice, some of them would actually train, some of them would give monetary support. But while all this was happening, often one woman was an enemy of the other woman, because what would happen is one woman is growing in a steadfast growth, and taking on other women, it sort of made her feel a little insecure. I wouldn't be able to explain that. Maybe it was a feeling that she was not fighting in a woman's world, she was a man in a man's world, so she might stop supporting the other women who were far close to her. But then, let us understand all women. We have been the princes for our fathers and our mothers, and how we were brought up with so much of love and affection and hopes and ambitions about us. They actually, all our fathers thought that they would never find the right kind of husband for us because we were so very special. And that speciality which you have in you, you do have to take it forward. And I'm going to give you the demographics. What has happened today, there has been a change in the life patterns. There have been late marriages, fewer children, childcare, creches, all have come. So it is not preventing women to get drained out of the system, but there have been those invisible barriers which are now getting broken up. And now women had started going into different places. You need to ponder. There was a very popular Harvard Business School study which showed that those companies which brought in women partners, they saw a 1.5% spike in their overall fund, and the profitable exits were better. So then women in leadership definitely were bringing in some tangible benefits. And then this context of glass cliff often comes up with women. A glass cliff is mentioned when there is a moment of crisis. And you found that those companies which were failing, these are reports which I extensively read, that companies were failing and they would get a woman into the organization. Is it that the woman was better in crisis development, or is it that the woman, anyway, she's a second in line, it's a failing company, let us give her a chance? Or is it that woman can handle adverse moments definitely better? Whatever it is, many of these women took up the reins and did get these companies to get better. Pandemic times had a whole range of women, governors of states all over the country, different parts of the globe, doing extremely well. And the global databases pulled out assessments of about 60,000 leaders, and it showed that on an average, 50% of them were women, and women actually outscored men in most leadership competence. There are two kinds of leadership qualities. One is transformation leadership, and one is transactional leaderships. Transformation leadership is sort of, it is about building self-confidence and strong values and individualized considerations, intellectual stimulation, and a lot of these. Whereas transactional was goal after goal. You work this well, you get this payment, how to keep the team together, what are the results, what are the procedures done, how do you take it forward? And it was found that the men were more into the transactional leadership and women were more into the transformation leadership. There are pros and cons to each. I'm not going to discuss it in my limited time. But this woman, you can imagine each of these women standing on top of a cliff with a ground around and knowing that she has the potential in her to take up that leadership moment and take it forward. The important thing came of all of these different studies was that there were women in the front lines too, and there were many women who could actually be cast as heroes, who really did well in their life. And then came this pandemic time when there was a lot of those barriers actually broke down. What they realized that the woman could work from home. Those rigid boundaries between physical workplace and the home slowly dissolved. And it was not just a woman area to work at home. They found that there was an unnecessary office spaces, saving on rentals could be thought, and unnecessary sparing the commuting, wear and tear of family traveling and the family separations. All of this started to be realized, and it came to be understood that why not you could have working from home and still do very well. And this seemed to be pretty good for many of the women as in these times. And it has stayed on beyond the pandemic times. And homeschooling children, single parents, shift workers, it was actually a blessing and advice. So then one more thing came out of it. What came out of it was the men and the women working from home were actually serving the same turf. And there were men who had started helping the woman in the kitchen, in the washing, and many things, because the sensitive man realized that the woman was doing this and doing that too. So there was a greater understanding and a mutual respect. And companies started also looking at a deeper look how diverse this woman is, and including them into their practices, and having more of women in them with this pattern of working from home had its own gains. It was giving them a broader reach. So what did we see this far in what I spoke to you? We saw a history of evolution. We saw the struggle. We saw the gender bias. We saw the gender pay gaps. We saw the social discrimination. There was sexual harassment, but there was a move forward. And there were associations and activists coming forward to their rescue. And then there was a better future which was happening. In this context, when you're talking of women in leadership, why not I say a few things of ophthalmology and women? The ground reality was truly different. It was a silver lining. The mantle of leadership is diverse, but there was more chances of equal footing. But then there were technological challenges. The woman had to learn all those technological skills with those limited resources which was there, because she was tied by family, she was tied by a requirement of a career, she was tied at keeping a good home, and she had to bridge all these bridges between the family, children, career pool, and need to stay afloat with her contemporaries, her colleagues. There was WhatsApp, there was social media, there was ways for her to know how the guys were going on and was it right. And if you look at the study, which tells us about the redistribution of responsibilities, women still were spending 352 minutes a day on unpaid work, as against 52 minutes amongst men. Men in the audience to note that this has to be changed. So the realization also came that you need to tap your resources. But women, as a woman much older to all of you, I think you should have the grace to allow that passage of time for childbearing and follow-up responsibilities. You should have the graciousness to enjoy your motherhood. It's a gift which only a woman can have. You should have the intelligence to exploit each moment. Accept that there would be a gradual shift from your part-time work to full stream. Take the help of leaders around you. Use your in-laws, your parents. Use them in a very, then other ways, I don't mean misuse them. Understand that they are there as your background support. They are going to help you build strong foundations. But yes, a moment would come while all this was happening, a moment of redundancy. There's also a self-realization that your colleagues have moved on, but you have not. But I think you only see obstacles when you take your eyes off the road. So then a woman had to look at all those hurdle races and be prepared that she's going to take work at small measures. A growth for her had to be a constant process, maybe a slow, steady process, but she has to understand that career is her personal belonging, and it is a solitary climb. That husband of hers is also not going to help her in that climb, but it has to be an urge within her to make this climb. This was another survey which was done, which showed that the woman earned 19% less than the male counterparts, but that is so irrelevant. There are so many business models which are available there. And I think a woman has to have the ability to dream. She can build herself, equip herself in different measures. In the interim period during the taking care of the child, she could get herself qualified. She could knock doors. She could learn on management skills. She could learn on revenue skills. She could learn all of it so that there is some knowledge which is being acquired. She should start a small practice if she is got a good connect. She could actually join corporates and different hospitals, even a government medical college, anywhere. But then she should always have a goal in mind that there's a big battle along the way and she's not going to lose sight of a final gain. So what you need to do as a woman, you should take yourself out of the routine negativism, the negative thinking which might come onto you, crush it. You have to strengthen your strike, and you should also have the generosity of the woman to give more to the family and society, and believe that your horizon is a distant dream, but it is a reachable dream. you build your practice, you find that social niche in the society. You may not be able to, some of those climbs may be rocky climbs, so you don't have to board it all alone. You could do a risk-free life too. But always feel a sense of ownership and pride in yourself. Always keep your family ties together because they are your army and you never know when they are going to come of use to you. So I think a woman is foolish to pretend that they're equal to men. My husband is sitting there, but yes, I believe a woman is far superior and has always been. If you want something said, they say, ask a man. But if you want something done, ask a woman. And woman in this crowd, I think a woman is a woman. A woman is a winner. You watch this woman, don't challenge her. She has challenged herself time and again in her life. She has come out of the best of the most inimical moments. She's got married into new families and she has made that family her own. She will rise up slowly. She will, maybe later than you, but that doesn't matter. She has collected cherished memories of her children and a loving husband along the way. She may have to take diverse paths, but she's a versatile woman. She's a man in a man's world and a woman in a woman's world. Do I call her an unbeaten second half or the better half? I think it's up to the woman what you want to be. So educate a man, you educate an individual. And if you educate a woman, you educate a family. So what matters most is how you see yourself. And I want all these women leaders in this room to look at them as themselves, as the lioness here. Leadership is possible. You can have your dreams. You can have your right quotient of work. Yes, you need the right quantum of luck. I'm not sure whether I'm lucky tomorrow, because the elections is there, but that doesn't matter, because we should have the right amount of forgiveness in her, because there is still the world beyond to win. It is not just this solitary win. And I'm not going to go into all these details and more, but yes, woman, you have unique transformational ideas. There's a lot of passion and enthusiasm in the present day. And let's close that gender pay gap and all those crappy things which they say. But the woman in this audience, I wish you go to a different level entirely. And the men in the audience, I hope you realize that what I said is what all this is unsaid by the woman there, that women have to be given chance to grow to the pinnacle that she wants to reach in life. Thank you.
Excellent presentation, ma'am. As always, very, very motivating, inspiring for all of us. I think we just heard the roar of the lioness, all you girls there. And I think more than like a one-man army, we are a one-woman army. But it's not a battle of the genders. We are not here to outperform or compete with each other. It's how I think we get along with each other, work hand in hand to make our lives and our workplace a better place to live in. It's not one against the other, it's one along with each other. I think we are like the two these things of a cycle, and you have to move in tandem.
Chitra,
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that lovely
really
presentation.
a fantastic talk.
Fantastic.
I wish I was a woman. After listening to you. Seriously, I'm telling you. It's a genuine remark.
I think that's the best compliment you can ever give. Thank you. Thank you so much.